What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Mohawk Motors. My name is Jason. So in this video, I'm back to work on the V6 to V8 swapped 1500 Silverado. Let's get to work on this thing, try to get it done. All right, so since I left off in the last video, here's what's happened. We left off with the engine and transmission sitting in the truck. I put the core support back together, the 2500 HD radiator, the electric fans that were originally in the truck. This is the original core support, by the way. Nothing changes there. The original AC condenser from the truck is back in. We've got our AC lines hooked back up to the condenser. Now I used the transmission cooler. This is actually the auxiliary transmission cooler from another 2500 HD that I had here. I wanted to make sure we got that in. All it took was a little bit of modification to the lines. I just had to shorten them up a little bit and then put the quick connect end back on them with the tool I have. So that was relatively easy to do. The power steering cooler is back in, the original power steering cooler to the truck. I don't know if you can see down there. It looks like you can. I've got the pressure line for the power steering hooked back up. I've got the return and cooler lines hooked back up. And we've got the transmission cooler into the radiator hooked back up. Now I also started on the plumbing. I've got the upper and lower radiator hoses back in place. I'm gonna get the heater lines put where they belong, the other AC line put back where it goes. Before I put those on, I wanna get Alan's headers installed. He got some shorty headers, so I wanna get those put on, because I think that's gonna be easier before I have all the other stuff in the way. And yeah, that's where I'm picking up. I want to try to get the headers put on, get the rest of the plumbing figured up, put up, going where it needs to go. I'll probably get the front end pieces put back on, the headlight supports, the not the front bumper yet. I don't know, guys. I don't have a solid plan. I'm gonna start hooking stuff back up. With the exception of some things that I'll explain to you here in a minute. So, I've reached a good stopping point for the night. It's getting late. I got the passenger side header put on. All the plumbing is done over here on the passenger side. Air filter is in place. Intake tube is in place. All the coolant lines, that's all plumbed up. And you can probably tell I've started unhooking the wire harness. All right, team, so I'm editing this, and spoiler alert, a lot of what I'm about to say in this video turned out to, it did not work. What I failed to account for is the difference in operating systems and the difference in drivers within the PCM that essentially would not let what I had said or what I'm about to say work. You'll see in the next video what I wound up doing to correct it, but long story short, I'm about to do a whole bunch of work that I'm then going to have to undo to actually make this thing work, make it start, and make it run and drive. So carry on watching, or, just let the rest of this video go and go ahead and watch the next video on this project, video 3, part 3, and that's going to show you what I wound up doing to correct it and fixing everything.
So, for those of you that are super sharp and already noticed this, the truck itself with the 4.3 was a drive-by cable throttle bind. Direct connection between the throttle pedal and the actual throttle blade via a cable. You push the pedal, pulls the cable, opens the throttle. It also uses the separate little cruise control module over here that actuates a secondary cable that pulls on the throttle. Accelerates or decelerates the engine to maintain speed. Now, you probably also noticed that this donor engine is a drive-by-wire engine. meaning that the computer controls the throttle blades via an electrical connection and a motor here in the throttle body. I'm in Maryland, and in Maryland we have vehicle emissions testing via plug-in to the onboard diagnostic port. And in order for this truck to pass Maryland emissions, the VIN number in the computer needs to match the VIN number of the truck. If I use the drive-by-wire computer, those VIN numbers won't match, it'll instantly fail emissions. And there's no way to get a waiver or anything around that. They'll know you've tampered with the vehicle, with the emissions components, etc., etc. Fortunately, 4.3 V6 uses a 411 PCM, and they also use 411 PCMs to control 6-liter V8s in 2000, 2001, 2002. So, the way we're going to make this all work, and we're going to keep this thing emissions compliant, is we're going to use the original computer from the truck, the 4.3 computer. We're going to do some programming changes, I'll show you that in a later video. And we're going to use a wire harness from a drive-by-wire, or excuse me, a wire harness from a drive-by-cable engine, which I have a couple of them here, so I'll just take the harness off of one of those engines, use that in this project, I'll just put all of the drive-by-wire stuff onto that engine. We'll swap out the throttle body as well for a drive-by-cable throttle body, and put this drive-by-wire throttle body with the harness compute everything else onto another engine. In short, we're going to convert this from a drive-by-wire engine to a drive-by-cable engine by switching the throttle body and the wire harness and utilizing the stock 411 PCM.
The nice thing about these Gen 3 V8s is all of the other connections are the same. The crank position, cam position, coolant temperature sensor, ignition coils, NOx sensors, evap solenoid, all of that stuff. All of the connectors are the same. The low oil, the power feed and exciter wire on the starter. All of those wires are the same. The only difference between the drive-by-wire and drive-by-cable throttle bodies are how they are actuated, obviously, and the connectors. The early drive-by-wire throttle bodies use an 8-pin connector, just one. The drive-by-cable throttle bodies have a connector for the idle air control motor, a connector for the throttle position sensor. So by swapping over our throttle and wire harness out of another truck that had a 6-liter and a 4L80E, we'll be able to simply convert it over to a drive-by-cable engine. We'll utilize all the stock throttle controls, and we'll utilize the stock computer with some reprogramming. And that'll make this thing 100% emissions compliant. They'll never know anything has been changed. As far as the emission station is going to be able to tell, this is going to be the engine and transmission that came in this truck from the factory. And that's what we want. That's our goal. All of that. Everything I just talked about, said, it did not work. You know, the only reason I'm leaving it in the video is because I want to share what does work and what doesn't work with you guys to hopefully help you avoid making the same mistakes I did. And, you know, learning isn't only done by succeeding. More often, learning is done by failing. And this is just a good example of what I had read and studied and thought would work. I missed a couple critical little details that would make it not work. So enjoy the rest of the video. And like I said, make sure you check out part 3, because that is actually going to show what does work in this application, in this particular swap. So if you're doing something similar to this, it should work for you as well. So I'm leaving it for tonight. I'll pick up next chance I get, probably tomorrow night or Saturday, with swapping over the harness, swapping out the throttle body, and then finish getting everything connected. We'll get the driver's side shorty header installed, all of the wiring put where it needs to be, and more or less button up the work under the hood. All right, team. Man, it always surprises me how much can get done with just a couple hours of uninterrupted go time. So,
I've got pretty much everything on the top side of the engine done. Wiring is all hooked up. Plumbing is all hooked up. Fuel, coolant, air conditioning, all hooked up, ready to go. I have not charged the air conditioning yet. I want to get the truck started first to make sure everything else is good before I charge it. Let's see. I need to fill all the fluids. Power steering, coolant, engine oil, and a new filter. And then I think everything here is good. I've got his new shorty headers installed. Wiring all routed on this side. Air intake plumbing hooked up. I have the sticker, the emission sticker off the donor truck. So I believe I should be able to just warm this up a little bit with the heat gun, and I can stick it right on that box lid. Again, I want this thing to look like it came this way from the factory. I did get the throttle cable and cruise control module out of a part out truck that I had here. The ones from the originals, the V6 ones, would have worked, but the cables were much longer than they needed to be. I would have had a bunch of extra cable flopping around, and I had the donor truck here. So I just grabbed these throttle cables out of that other parts truck that I have. Excuse me, throttle and cruise control cables out of that other parts truck that I had here. Yeah, I think this thing, we're getting really close. I'm not going to put the whole front end back on it until I've heard it run. Once I get it started, I'm sure I don't have any leaks, especially in the transmission cooler, power steering cooler, all of that stuff. Once I know all my cooling systems are good and leak tight, water tight, fluid tight, I'll go ahead and get all the front end pieces put back on it. But next step, and probably where I'm gonna end today, is get it jacked up, get the Y pipes put on. From the looks of it, I believe this Y pipe is supposed to match up with the factory exhaust from there back. So I'll get all that put in, hooked up underneath,